Greetings and welcome to In Conversations with Naomi. Today I have with me Zakhona Mvelase. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Naomi.
Oh, you are so very welcome. So everyone, I have the most incredible woman with us today. I met her through, we are part of the Harvard South African Fellowship Program. You are the founder of AWACN.
Yes.
Can you please tell everyone what AWACN is and a part of your origin story?
Thank you so much, Naomi, and I'm very happy to be here today. AWACN, it's actually an abbreviation for African Women Against Corruption Network, which is an independent anti-corruption think tank on a mission to advance the participation of women in the anti-corruption agenda in Africa. So which we do by just focusing the lens on the impact of corruption on women and girls.
And we do take for granted what the impact has on women.
Absolutely.
And particularly the young girls, right?
Absolutely.
Can you tell me, how did you get to start AWACN? Where did that journey start for you?
The journey really started, so I've been in the anti-corruption space for over a decade, and having spent that time, you sort of, get a little bit preoccupied when you look at, the participation disparity between men and women. It almost seemed like corruption was a man's problem to solve, right? And we didn't see many women participating in this space, which for me was a little bit absurd, right?
Yeah.
Specifically because if you look at any research paper, it will say to you that women suffer more from corruption than any other gender, right? But the people who are suffering more from a problem are not there when we are creating solutions for the problem. So for me, I was like, okay, how do we create a space, right?
Yes.
A platform where women,
Yes.
where women will find, their voices being heard, where we would amplify the voice of women, and also their perspectives, being, registered when it comes to anti-corruption. What is the voice of women? What are women talking about when it comes to corruption? So we wanted to create a platform where, we can have that exchange.
And that diversity of voices for me is so
Absolutely.
critical, right? Because then we look at a multitude of ways in which we could tackle the challenges.
Absolutely.
But also what some of those solutions could be. And it's always like, I come from corporate, and even in corporate, how do you have a boardroom where you only have the voices of one particular gender being heard?
Absolutely.
But when you bring in that diversity, even companies, they do better, they perform better with that diversity. So I absolutely love that. But let's talk about the young Zakhona. Where did that start? Where did the dream to make a difference in the world start?
Interestingly enough, so I come from KZN. I come from a township called Kwamashu. That is where I was born and raised as a daddy's girl.
I love that. I'm a daddy's girl too.
I was raised as a daddy's girl, and I was raised by a very strong mother, right? She was, I always say that when I look at role models, and I know that it sounds cliche, right? And in fact, when I was growing up, I didn't really realize that my mom was actually my role model. Right? But as I look back now at the things that I'm doing, I realize that, oh my goodness, it all comes from that woman, right? And the things that she did, and the spaces that she was trailblazing already long time ago. And growing up in that environment, you sort of see the strength of a woman, right? You sort of see the change that women can bring. So my mom, she's now late. We lost her in 2020.
I'm sorry.
Well, I think she used to want us to celebrate her life, right? So it's no longer a sob story. I used to cry. She used to. I always laugh when I speak about her, because she used to say, please do not cry when I pass away, right?
Oh my word, my mom used to say the same thing,
right? I've done everything that I was supposed to do, right?
I'm going to miss you still.
So please do not cry when I pass away. So, which is always, I find it very, I can explain.
It's such a contradiction.
Exactly.
You want to celebrate
you want
them,
to celebrate her,
yeah.
but she's like, don't cry, because I've done everything that I wanted to do.
Yes.
So she, she had founded a multi-purpose community center, which was, housing kids in the community, and from birth right up until preschool level. So in the township they called it a crèche, and that's probably where I started working as well, right? Because when she started,
it's all hands on deck,
all hands on deck, right? This is our community. This is our homework, right? So when you come back from school, you are looking after the kids in a crèche. But I saw that as time grew, I realized that was coming from her just saying, how do I make a difference? Kids are growing up, parents are now going to work, and nobody is looking after their children. So how do I create a safe space, for kids for parents to bring their children and know that their children,
they're going to be safe.
Absolutely. So and she ran that business until her passing in 2020, and that business is still carrying on today, right?
Oh, wow.
And what's even more interesting is that it's now run by my brother.
Oh,
which is
look at that.
But it's a legacy that she left, right? And I think looking back also, she cared about the problem and she found solutions to the problem, and she then instilled that in us to say that, how do you create something that lasts?
Correct.
And I think that is where really I would say my passion for solving the problems that I care about came from.
What you see.
Absolutely.
And those for me are our everyday heroes.
Absolutely.
Those are the people who are not being celebrated by big awards. They don't go out there doing things because they say, I want to change the world. But it's seeing a problem and solving that problem. And that makes a difference. That's where her strong daughter has emanated from. And now changing Africa. So earlier on, before we started, you and I had a conversation about how we can make a difference in terms of anti-corruption, right? We don't need to be in a position of power. You do not need to be the president or a minister or someone with so many accolades, but we start from where we are at.
Absolutely.
So can you tell me a little bit more about some of the programs that you are having? Recently, you just had one for young women in Soweto. Can you tell me a little bit about the projects that you run through?
Thank you so much, Naomi. I think one of the things that by now you'd know I get preoccupied by a lot of things, right? But one of the things
you're in good company.
One of the things that also preoccupied me was the fact that, when you talk about corruption, people, sort of feel detached by corruption, because it's almost like it's a problem that's so far removed from you, right? That when you look at it, you've mentioned now that, without us just looking at politicians to solve the problem, but really, what can we do, right? And also, when people talk about corruption, they talk about corruption in the grand scheme of things, not your day-to-day corruption that people experience and that people participate in, whether willingly or unwillingly.
Whether it's a can of Coke for the policeman because you didn't have your seatbelt on?
Absolutely, you see. So, and that's why, we wanted to sort of say, why are these things happening, right? And they're happening simply because people do not even understand corruption, right? So how do we bring the conversation of corruption outside of the boardroom, but bring it to the people, right? And also people who are, the ones who are suffering more from corruption, right? I always laugh and say that, when we started the work that we do, the first things first is that one of the things that we sort of realized was that women interpreted corruption as an act of kindness.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, how do we change that? How do we sort of bring this to the fore as the crime that it is, you know, but also in an educational way, right? Where people
to make it relatable, that people understand,
you know,
what this actually means.
Absolutely, because you know, corruption is very technical. You know, people when they talk about corruption, you talk about numbers. You know, you talk about the CPI says we are now number 43 in South Africa, but
what
you don't even understand
for me?
How did we get
exactly,
there? Right?
Exactly.
How did we get there? So whether we are saying corruption increased or corruption reduced, you don't know the role that you're playing, right? And the fact that you do have a role to play, right? And that's where we really thought, okay, how do we create a platform where we get people empowered? You know, we get people understanding the problem for what it is. And one of the most interesting things was that, you know, probably in our second event, on the events that we usually host, was that we started to realize that the problem is not that people don't know. But the problem is there's no platform for people to be able to engage in these situations. So now...
And to find those solutions or to engage around, you know, potential solutions.
Absolutely. And also because when we started, we focused mostly on women, right? We were saying, okay, how do we get women involved? How do we get women start talking? And when women were talking, they would bring their girls along, right? And as they bring their girls along, we started realizing, I mean, our mission is to really focus the lens on the impact of corruption on women and girls, right? How do we create a space for girls? That's how then this initiative that you just spoke about, AWACN Girls, Girls Against Corruption, came about, which was a fantastic initiative. I think that's one of our best so far because, you know, young girls have a voice. You know, and I never got to have a chance myself to voice out what I thought, you know, about the you know, the socioeconomic issues that we have in our society. But you know, giving young girls, you know, that platform and seeing how rich, you know, the young girls, the information that they have, and also the ideas that they have on us to solving the problems that we currently face.
That's powerful. And if we think about South Africa's history and you think about the youth that mobilized, so much of our freedom and what we have today is because of the young people. So why now are we excluding them? There are so many solutions, there are so many ideas that sits with our young people. So how do we incorporate all those voices, that diversity? Absolutely wonderful. I love the work that you are doing.
Love it too.
So Zakhona, I think I started off saying that you and I were both Harvard Fellows.
Yes.
And I know for me, there was a dream that I've had for, I can't even know how long. When I started studying law, it was one of the pipe dreams. One day I will get to that point. Can you tell me a little bit about your journey to Harvard? How did you come to apply or even know about the fellowship that is available? And what was your time like in Boston?
Oh my goodness.
We can talk about that the whole day, right?
Talk about that the whole day.
We won't bore all of you with that.
I'm telling you, you know, well, that was an eye-opening time. You know, I always say that, you know, Harvard was transformational for me, right? You know, and I think I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing now had I not had that experience, right? But just going back to how the journey started, really, so by profession, I'm a forensic accountant. And, you know, I had spent this much time, you know, in this space. And obviously, as I stated earlier,
we
that
need
looking
so many
into
more of your profession.
Absolutely, right? And that's why we are advancing the participation of women in the anti-corruption agenda. So, you know, then I then thought to myself, well, you've been here for over a decade, right?
Yes.
And you've done so much work, you know, you are earning recognition here and there, but which problems are you solving, right? And that's where really this opportunity to go to Harvard came about. It came about when I was having those questions in my life, and I said, you know, how do I take whatever I've learned and really go to a space where I'm going to be challenged to unlearn some of the
Yes.
things that I think I already
Yes.
know, and
Yeah.
to relearn some of the
Yes.
things that I knew, but maybe just in a better way. And what a better place than to go to Harvard, to Harvard, right? That's when then, so I'd always, but I didn't know that, because, you know, Harvard is a very far dream.
It almost looks impossible, right?
It's a very far
It's
dream.
for those people.
So, exactly, right? So you don't even think that it can happen for you, right? So interestingly enough, so I was working for, I work for the National Treasury, and my boss at the time, she then comes and says to me, there's an opportunity, you know, to apply for the scholarship
Yes.
at Harvard, and she had seen it, and, you know, and then she says it to me, you know, I think it'd be best to apply for it. I'm like, girl, please.
I had the same response.
Like, girl, please. Right, I know that you believe in me, and I love it for you, right? But
no,
Harvard,
no,
you're
no,
taking it too
wait,
far.
wait. Me can get in there?
Exactly, right?
No.
I'm like, Harvard, you are taking it too far. I know you believe in me, but please, girl.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
And she kept on saying to me, no, I think you'll be fantastic for the opportunity. And I was like, okay.
But does that not remind you of how we discount ourselves
Absolutely.
before anyone else discounts
Before
us?
anybody else discounts us. And also what then that taught me was that, you know, people around us see so much in us that we don't see in ourselves.
Yes.
You
Yes,
know?
yes.
Because she's so me and she's so Harvard, and I was like, no, man,
And you were like,
there's just
wait.
no way. Right? But then, so she came with this opportunity, and she's like, you know what, this is an opportunity that you can apply for. What have you got to lose?
Yes.
Just apply, right?
Yes.
And that's what I remember when I first said it to a couple of my friends, that, you know, there's this opportunity and I want to apply for it. Interestingly enough, my friends also believed that I could make it, which was very interesting, you know, because I was like, oh, okay.
They're the ones that sit up
everybody
with
around
you
me,
and reviews your
everyone
essays.
you know, everyone around me believes that you can do it, and you don't believe that you can do it. So then applied for the scholarship, and it was a very grueling process.
Don't we
A
know?
very grueling process to get in. But I loved that process, because what then it did for me is that it sort of gave me an opportunity to really think deeply about what I wanted to do, right? And also just packaging what I wanted to do in a more clearer way then, because, you know, sometimes you have all these thoughts, but until you get to a place where you are sitting down and saying exactly what it is that you want to achieve.
You've got to articulate that vision.
Absolutely.
And it has to become part of who you are.
Absolutely, right. And I think that's when and from that application process, I was like, okay, I'm not letting this go.
Yeah.
And I didn't make it the first round, which is very interesting.
I did not either. I did not. And I was like, I'm not giving up on this.
I didn't make it the first round. And then when I came for the second round, I was like, okay, now I know what I want to do, right? And I think that confidence of knowing what it is that you want to do. And also it gave me another year to really package again, right?
And to strengthen and to build upon that goals that you actually want to achieve through the program.
Absolutely, you know, and I always say that, you know, people see AWACN what it is now, but really AWACN started in that interview room, right? Because that's when I had to say, why do I want to do this?
You need to know your why.
Exactly, right? And that's when I really sort of understood my why as well, because it's a process. It's not a once-off thing. You know, you grow into it. And then I think that is what, that's what Harvard gave to me.
I love that. I love that. So you mentioned that you discounted yourself, and one day on my conversations with Naomi, I'll share my journey. But I had Harvard on my vision board for many years prior. But I kind of had an idea of how I'm going to get into it. So similar to you, when someone came to me and says, there's this fellowship, we think you're perfect for it, I'd burst out laughing. I'm like, what? Fellowships are for the elites. They are for the people that get like A's in everything, that get distinctions. But that lesson for me as well was, don't ever stop yourself until they say no.
Absolutely.
And even if they say no, you don't give up, especially if you believe in what you want to do, right? Especially if you believe in this is where I want to go to. And for me, it solidified my purpose. And my purpose is about opening doors. It's about creating seats at the table. And I'm hoping through us having conversations that we empower more people with information, with sharing everyone else's journey and stories so that they can know I can as well.
That's great.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, absolutely love that. So what I want to talk about next is the very concept of a growth mindset. And I think us having gone through our journeys required us to try things, not knowing whether you're going to succeed. It leads back to first getting the no and go, okay, this no is going to make me stronger. I'm going to try again. What does growth mindset mean to you, and how have you applied it in your life up until now?
I think if we had to take a very quick example, what we've just spoken about now, when everybody else around me had said, no, you're going to make this, you can make it. And then I go to that, I've got 6 Harvard University professors interviewing me, and they say, no, you don't make it, right? The interesting part when you talk about growth mindset was that when I came back from that and they said no, I said, no, you are wrong. Right? I am going to Harvard. Now I started believing in myself, right?
Yes.
And it was so interesting how that no turned me to say no, I need to, because I already have one foot in the door.
I'm here now. There's nothing stopping me anymore.
All right. So I'm like, I already have one foot in the door. You've already shortlisted me, which means my ideas make sense to you, right? So you've already shortlisted me. I was in the interview round. I didn't make it. That's fine. But what do I do next? How do I improve myself and learn from what has already happened, and say, this is now me, and this is now the Zakhona that I present to you that you are going to say yes to, right? And I think just that for me was the whole shift of growth mindset, right? To say, you know what, I'm not fixed on the failure, but I'm fixed on saying, I'm sort of growing into what I want to see happening. So it's really been a journey of, and I always say that, sometimes people look at our successes, but really for me, my successes are usually the sum total of my failures.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what people don't even realize that.
And that's what people don't see. They don't see the journey. They don't see the steps that we're taking. They don't see the failures that became the stepping stones for us to go to the next.
Absolutely. It's almost like people shun failure. I'm like, no, but that's where that's the place where you learn to do better, right? And I think it gives you an opportunity to say, what did I do wrong? And then want to try again. If you want to try again, if you want to change the whole scenario, you have an opportunity to change the whole scenario, right? So that for me has really been what, growing or having this growing mindset has been.
Yes. Fantastic. I always tell my mentees that failure is not fatal.
Absolutely.
It 100% builds that foundation. And when you remove the fear, that creates beautiful moments and beautiful opportunities. And it is always thinking about, what am I learning from this experience? What am I gaining from this experience? We spoke about sometimes taking where we've come, where we are right now, almost for granted. And this is such a beautiful time to reflect and say, but if I look back, those were all stepping stones. And what are we doing with that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always say that for the longest of time in my life, I suffered from perfectionism, right? And I wanted to be perfect. I wanted everything to be perfect.
Yes.
Nothing ever is.
No, it's not. It's not.
Nothing ever is.
And the imperfections actually create the most beautiful art, right?
Absolutely, right? And it's like, people see failure and they view failure. I always say, even the things that you succeed on, the so-called wins, are almost failures, right? Because one thing could just happen and it makes it a failure. But the right thing happened that makes it a win.
That makes it a win. And what's a win for you may not be a win for someone else. Or what you think is a failure could be such a win for. So it's perception
Absolutely.
and how we perceive even through those moments. So talking about failure, right? When I received my first no from Harvard, first I cried and I was like,
we all cried.
I wanted
I
this.
probably cried for 6 months.
I wanted this so badly. And then I wrote my letter and I'm like, thank you so much, Professor. I do not take this as a no, but as a deferred yes. You shall see me.
I love it for you.
I would love. Professor John will be in South Africa soon,
Oh my goodness.
and I have to have coffee with him because I'd love to know what he thought of my cheeky little letter. But like when you really know what it is that you want, and you are clear on your vision, and you're clear on that dream, don't let anyone stop you from
Absolutely.
it. And you even mentioned that maybe you learn from it and you pivot, and that's okay too. And so many times as women, we need to give ourselves the permission to change our minds.
Absolutely.
In my career, I started off as a lawyer. I veered very far off from law. I said, I'll never do law again because I found it not as inspiring for me and for my personality. And I'm right back at law, but in a very different capacity.
Absolutely.
So taking some of our losses and taking some of our failures and really just reframing it becomes so important.
Absolutely. You know, you're making me think at a time, so how I transitioned to be a forensic auditor or accountant, right, the work that I do now.
Yes.
But what was interesting is that I started my career as an auditor, right? And during that time, I was unfortunately given an opportunity to then, audit the public sector. And then I always say that, guys, I got tired of auditing crime.
Whoa.
Right. And I was
What
like,
a powerful
there has to be
statement.
something.
There has to be something different, right?
More. And that's how I then transitioned into forensic accounting, because I said, well, there must be a way in which we are able to get people accountable, right?
Yeah.
And how do we get people accountable? We get people accountable by showing that this is what you've done wrong, right? And really presenting that into courts and so on and so forth. And that's the beautiful work that forensic accountants do, right? And people thought I was crazy, though, right? I mean, why are you leaving auditing? You already have
you've got an established career,
right? Why are you leaving
this? Prestige comes with it,
right? And most of my friends are in that field, so it was like, girl, please. I can't. You want to change careers? Like, no, but that's the thing about, purpose.
Yeah.
Is that it draws you to where you are supposed to be, right?
Yes.
Because for me then, it was a problem that I was the only one who was affected in my circles, right? And it was like, I can't, guys. I can't be giving recommendations every year and
it's
coming
the same
back to the same problems. And it's the same.
And we're going in circles here. There's got to be something else. There's got to be something different.
Else. I can't come back the following year and the same thing. I'm giving the same recommendation and another year and another year. Until when am I going to keep on doing this? And until when are we going to see the real change that we want to see, right? And really, it started off as that. I didn't know that it was purpose at the time. It's only now looking back. Saying, oh my goodness, all these turns were to take me to a point where I am able to now do the work that I love, right? Yes. When I wake up in the morning, I'm saying, okay, this is the difference that I want to make in this world.
Yes. And if you haven't walked that journey, you may not be the full whole person that you are right now to make the difference. So sometimes even where we at, it may not be your forever place, but it's a stepping stone to get you to the next level.
Absolutely. And that time wasn't cute.
No.
Right? That time wasn't on a podcast.
No.
Right?
No. Definitely not.
It wasn't on a podcast.
It was bolding.
I was shunned, throughout the profession. People were like, who the hell do you think you are? What is this forensic thing that you want to do, right? And I mean, this is now back in 2011, right? And it's like, guys, I know I want to do this, right? I know I want to do this, and I want to do this because of these reasons.
Correct.
Because I care about corruption as a problem, and I feel that there's something that we could do, right? And
we could make a difference.
We could make a difference, and so just being in that, that time, it wasn't cute, right? It was difficult.
Yeah.
I had a lot of questions, even to myself, to say, is this thing going to work? Is this me changing now going to take me anywhere that I want to go. But really, I think that's the work that purpose then does for you, right? Because it then leads you to a place where you are supposed to be.
Yeah, and sometimes we build in the dark. Sometimes we build by ourselves. You put in the work, and what blooms at the end, that beautiful flower, is years and years of you putting in that work behind
absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. And I think, the biggest problem is that we want to plant today and have this tree.
Yes, like with roots that will sustain itself.
It's like, no, it doesn't happen that way, right? It doesn't happen that way. Sometimes, as I was saying earlier, that, sometimes people think that, they see AWACN now. They don't know that AWACN started in that Harvard
classroom.
in that small little interview that I was having with those Harvard professors. It was almost like, it can never happen, right? But I was like, they believed in it.
Yes.
That's why they called me to this place. I just need to perfect this in such a way that they are able,
they can see, that they can also buy into that.
It. Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
100%. So being a forensic accountant, having worked in anti-corruption must not have been easy, because people do not want this exposed. At some point, you probably even questioned yourself. It's like, am I okay? Am I really going to put myself and my life on the line to uncover this? Tell me about the strength and what it took for you to say, despite knowing I'm going against the grain, I'm still going to do this.
I think that, I always say that I started my career into this anti-corruption work with a very strong woman. She has since passed. Her name was Zakhona Mvelase, and she was I think she was one of the strongest women I knew. And she was just like, what, I'm gonna do this, and working alongside her, right, and just seeing their strength was sort of, the role model I needed, in this space. And also, being in the team that I worked with, because yes, it was male-dominated, it's a male-dominated team, but also, finding people who are just putting you under their wing and saying, we see that you're here for the right reasons, right? So we're going to support you in whatever endeavors that you have, and also support in whatever transitions that you transition to, right? And now having transitioned into the gender and corruption space, also finding mentors and, people who are saying, hey, we are here for you, and we are here to sort of guide you and support
to walk with you
and
sometimes
to walk the journey with you, right? And also to just, even if you don't make sense to them, they say, okay, we are here to listen, right? Until you make sense, we are just going to be here to listen to you. And I think
even if we don't understand you, we've got you.
We've got you. And I've always had people in my life who just, who really support me, who are really saying, you know what, we've got you. Whatever it is that you do, you're allowed to make mistakes. You are going to make mistakes, and that's how you learn. And, if it means that you're making a mistake and we sort of panel beat you a little bit, we'll do that. But you're on the right hands.
You're in safe space. You're surrounded by those.
I always say that one of the people I admire a lot liked saying to me, you know what, you must embrace not knowing, right? And I was like, oh my goodness, we always want to know. Knowledge is power, right? And
that is powerful. You must repeat that.
You must embrace not knowing.
Wow.
And I think that's been a life changer for me, right? Just embracing not knowing and being fine with not knowing. Because, as I was saying, people say knowledge is power, right? So you want to know everything.
Of course.
Especially if you've gone to Harvard.
Oh, my dear. And especially if you're an A-type personality too, right?
Like, oh, my goodness. So you want to know everything. I was like, no. I'm fine with not knowing everything, and I'm fine with learning, because it opens me up to even learning things that I would not have known, right? And also learning about other people, learning about different leadership styles. So all of those things, it just, I think it simplified my life, right? Just embracing the fact that I don't have to be the smartest in the room, right? And I don't have to be even if I seem like I'm the one who's failing, in the room.
It's also okay. Right? It's also okay.
That's my truth. That's my journey, and I'm embracing that. So I think that's really, that's where I've been, and that's who I am.
Yeah. So the theme for me for our conversation is just embracing where we're at, not knowing, but very critically for me is the woman that played such a pivotal role, both in your life and even for me. My mum was an incredibly strong woman, very similar to yours, was just going about and doing what she needed to do. And I would really love to dedicate our conversation today and our episodes to our mothers.
Oh my goodness, yes, please. I love that.
They have really, I think, been the women that shaped us.
Absolutely. Those are the unsung heroes.
The unsung heroes.
That we looked up to and that created the women that we are today.
Yeah. And I feel so many times that them having transitioned as angels have become such a guiding light, even beyond them just being here. So we remember the lessons that they taught us. We have the resilience built in us because of the journeys that we've journeyed with them. But just that incredible legacy that we are able to pick up and run with has been just phenomenal.
Absolutely. You know, I always laugh because I grew up very introverted, and I still am introverted. And my sister always says to me, I wonder what mom would say if she had to see you now, right? Because I was always that young girl who's behind the closed doors. Like even if we've got visitors at home, I can't wait to find time.
You've been
just
pulled out of those closed doors.
So now I've been pulled out of those closed doors, and I'm like, I mean, she will see a different person. But I think what would be lovely for her is to know that she's literally the footprint of who I am today, right? Her just taking those steps then, you know, and saying that I want to make a difference is what made me, when I'm looking at myself now, saying, okay, this is the difference that I want to make, and these are the solutions that I want to bring to the world.
Yeah, she's empowered you to be able to pick up that baton and run with it.
Absolutely.
Zakhona, this was for me just the most incredible conversation. Thank you so much for your time. Do you have any parting words that you want to share with our audience? Nuggets of advice, any words of wisdom that you believe that you would like to impart with our audience?
I think I'll leave with these words that were said to me that simplified my life. To say that embrace not knowing.
Yes.
You know, we want to know everything.
Yeah.
Sometimes not knowing is what we need to know everything. So
absolutely.
That will be my parting words.
So Zakhona, thank you so much for your parting words. I will take those lessons and the words of not knowing with me all the time. I'm sure so many of our audience would love to learn more about the work that you are doing, would love to learn more about Zakhona. Can you tell us where they can follow you, where they can find you, and just get more of these pearls and wisdoms from what you share?
Thank you so much, Naomi. I think AWACN is on all social media networks. So we are on Twitter at AWACN_Africa. We are on Instagram, AWACN_Africa. On Facebook, African Women Against Corruption Network, as well as on LinkedIn, we are African Women Against Corruption Network. We are also available on our website, which we are more responsive on, which is www.awaken.africa.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you very much. Everyone, please do follow and support the incredible work that Zakhona and AWACN is doing. And before we close, I'd really like to thank you for your time.
Thank you,
we
Naomi.
also have a huge thank you from our sponsors that made it possible today. And in particular, we have a small we have a small gift for you from our team at NJ. And that really, it's a brand that embraces purpose, the way you and I had a conversation. So I'd love to present you with a small thank you.
Love it. Love it.
Thank you very
so
much.
Naomi.
Thank you, everyone. And we wish you a fantastic day wherever you are. Cheers.